I have 3 sons, 10, 14, and 18. And my passion is teaching financial literacy. I got into the financial literacy space in 2014, just after I had rehabilitated myself from my own financial trauma. I found myself pregnant with my 3rd child, with no medical aid, no savings, no money in the bank, and 17 rand to my name, and not sure how I was actually going to survive. So through my own financial literacy education and my own financial journey, I decided that this was something that I wanted to do full time. Over the last 6 years, I've developed a number of brands. So my flagship product, MoneySavvy Kids, we teach kids at a primary school level. So we have school programs, holiday programs, and teacher training. MoneySavvy Teens, which is our teen curriculum. And then we also have MoneySavvy Generation, which is our corporate content leg. So we create financial literacy content for corporates. At the moment, one of the projects we're working on is actually doing an online user journey, a customized user journey, teaching people how to manage their debt and how to budget. I also run an advertising agency, but my core focus at the moment is helping people to get through this really, really difficult time. One of the things that happened specifically to me when COVID hit was my one business stopped earning income completely. And I've had to pivot and completely readjust my own personal life. And because of that, I felt it was really pertinent to start having these conversations, because you don't know what you don't know. So how do we help people pivot in these pinnacle times?
Yeah, and so many people need it. I just know with the kind of work that I do, and for those that don't know me, my name is Paula Quinsee. I am a life and relationship coach, and I've been working with individuals and corporates around relationships, relationships in your personal space and relationships in the workplace. So things around emotional intelligence, conflict management, team profiling, behavior profiling. And a lot of the work that I do on an individual level, particularly when it comes to individuals and couples, is around managing money. And I'm seeing quite a few of the people that are coming to me at the moment really anxious about the situation that they're being in. And you and I have had this discussion before, where one of the top stresses that people, individuals take with them into the workplace is financial stress.
Yeah, exactly. And how do we help them manage that? From an organizational level, there are not a lot of companies that are actually putting those things into place. So where do you go when you need help?
Yeah. And so that's why we work so well together, because you work with them from managing debt and money and all those kind of things, and I help them manage the anxiety and the stress that comes with it, and obviously how to deal with it from a relationship perspective, because it adds huge stress to a relationship as well.
Sorry, before we kick off, Paula, can I just maybe ask everybody just to do a little quick introduction of who they are? So I recognize one name, Terence, so I'm going to pick on you first. If you guys could just unmute yourselves and just give us a quick introduction, who you are and what it is that you want to achieve out of this workshop today.
Yeah, I'll pick on me first. So I work in financial planning and having better money conversations with people and helping them understand where they're at, etc. So hoping to pick up a nugget or two of info I can use when chatting to couples and helping them and align with each other, because often it is not there. And we'll have a chat, for instance, where do you see retirement? And I get 2 different stories, and they've never actually sat and spoken about that. Or, where's little Johnny going to go to school? And dad says this and mom says that. So it's to try and get that alignment and alleviate some of that stress.
And I'm sure sometimes that can be tricky as well, having those conversations.
Yes.
Stephen?
Shut up, Terence. Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen. Yeah, I'm a friend of Terence's as well. Today, my wife and I have both tuned in. We're watching, she's watching on a big screen up here. Yeah, we just want to, I think we're just looking for a little bit of rationale that's going on right now around us. As you mentioned, Kathryn, our focus had to change quite radically in the last, 4 months.
Yeah.
yeah, we're looking for nuggets and we're looking for guidance. So yeah, that's why we've tuned in.
Great, thank you, Stephen. Lauren, you just joined us. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why you're here today?
Hi, Kathryn. I'm here with my partner, Robin, and we're here basically just to learn from you ladies. We know that you know a lot more than we do, so just here to learn, basically, and to, I suppose, learn together so that we are able to grow together in this area of finance, I suppose.
Great. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Virash, am I saying your name correctly? Virash?
You are saying it correctly. And I'm firstly going to apologize if I keep dropping in and out because my connection is very unstable. I only just realized that now, so I apologize if I'm a little bit disruptive. Thank you. I'm a divorce mediator and currently having conversations with people who want to get divorced based on their very bad financial communication that they have between each other. And I sort of want to see if anything in their communication can be salvaged if they're both speaking the same financial language and being realistic about their decisions. Divorce, is not the first step, but maybe it could be the last step only after they've been properly informed and are making realistic decisions. So again, like with everyone else, just want to understand if the conversations are going in the right direction.
Okay, awesome. So you're going to be taking this one forward. That's so great. As someone who's been divorced from the same man twice, these were never fun conversations.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, and welcome. And as I said, we really want this to be conversational. So if there is something that you want to ask, please either just put your hand up or unmute yourself or post it in the chat box, and we will have, answer those questions. We're also going to have some time at the end where we're just going to open it up to everybody in terms of either questions or food for thought or comments that you're going to be taking away with yourself today. So, Kath, you and I, we've been chatting, and I know that I've had quite a few people that have come to me, both individuals and couples, where they have been impacted right now from a COVID perspective. Either salaries have been cut. I've heard one person where their partner's salary was cut by 70%. So they were getting 30% of their salary. And I know someone else that has been retrenched during this time as well. So, with being in that kind of a situation, what can someone do now to cut back on expenses?
So I'm in the exact same situation. I'm lucky to have more than one income, so that absolutely saved me. But the business that was making me the most money absolutely died. The minute lockdown happened, all of my work cancelled, all of my contract cancelled, and all of my franchisees stopped earning money. And I was one of the lucky ones that had some savings, but I didn't have enough to last me 6 months because I am a single parent. So there were a couple of things that I did in my own life. And you're going to attest to this. Some of it had to be a big mindset shift for me. So I cut my food bill as a start from 5,000 Rand a month to 2,000. That includes my cleaning products and my pet food. And I have 3 sons and they're teenagers. So you can just imagine how much food I go through. So that for me was like a big shift. I had to do things like now I make my own dog food. I had to cook. I've just spent the last 3 hours cooking for the next 2 days. So that was such a big thing. So first I took my budget and I looked at my budget and I was like, where realistically can I cut back? Because as you know, I've cut back twice over the last 2 years since my divorce. And I didn't think that I could cut back, but I actually did manage to save another full 10,000 Rand when lockdown happened. So I went back and I relooked my insurances again. I changed my car insurance. I changed my household insurance. I froze my RAs for 6 months. I relooked my cell phone bill. I've actually moved my contract to Cell C, and that saved me 1,000 Rand a month. I cut back on my domestic worker. I had to change my mindset more than anything and realize, how was I going to live now versus the way that I was living before? And it was quite an educational process for my children, actually. So I did very basic things, like when it came time to shopping, I'd say to them, okay, guys, we have a budget, 500 Rand a week this is what we have to buy this week. And I would allocate a price to every item. So bread, I had 20 Rand, milk, I had 25 Rand, cereal, I had 40 Rand. And what I do with the kids, because it has to become a family arrangement. I said to them, okay, guys, this is what we have to buy. This is how much I've allocated for everything. Every single cent that you save, you guys can keep for whatever you want for yourself. So we landed up only ever spending like 430, 450 Rand, because they managed to make sure they shaved off every single item on that list so that there was some money left over. And one of the things that I have not stopped doing is making sure that I pay myself first. I still save 10% of everything I make, even though I can't really afford it right now, because this is the first time we've been in a situation like this. And I think a lot of the reason that people are struggling is because they've never had to deal with a situation like this. And those people that don't have savings are going to be in a lot of trouble. They're going to lose houses, cars, etc. So that is my one non-negotiable. I'm still saving because I know that this could happen again in 6 months' time.
Yeah, and at the same time, teaching your kids some very important skills too.
Very important lessons, you know, where I'm teaching them how to, like I say to them, okay, guys, this is the food we have for the week. This is what I'm making over the next 3 days. Like, you have to make sure that when you want something, you have to come and ask me. It's actually been pretty great because from a parenting level, we've actually got a much more well-organized household because nobody's helping themselves anymore.
Yeah.
But Paula, let me ask you, so why do couples find it so hard to talk about money? What is it in a relationship that makes it so difficult for two people to have these important conversations?
Yeah, so as we know, money is not a sexy topic to talk about. It's not a fun topic to talk about. And it actually normally or usually comes from our childhood and our upbringing in terms of how our parents spoke about money or dealt with money, because that's where we first get exposed to money and that's where we first learn about money. And that's kind of where we get our perception of the role that money plays in our life. And it's either something that is spoken about and openly, or it's something that's spoken about sort of very hush-hush, you know, don't let the kids know about this, or, you know, and so we don't have money conversations to begin with growing up. And that, yeah, absolutely. And then when we get into a relationship, it's not a topic that we talk about from a relationship point of view, because, you know, when we're in that honeymoon romantic phase, we're in love and we just want to be with this person and we're thinking about our future together. And invariably when we think of our future, we think and envisage the wedding day, but we very seldom stop to think about what is the happily ever after going to look like, and where does money fit into that happily ever after. And we're not taught how to share money, so from a couple's perspective, and it also depends on what kind of generation you were exposed to. You know, previous generations, it was, well, you know, the sort of typical sentiment was the man was the breadwinner. He went out and made the money, and when he came back, it was up to the woman to manage the household. So it was kind of the roles and responsibilities that we grew up with that created those perceptions as well, in terms of who managed the money and who controlled the money and what money meant. So that's invariably where it comes from, that conditioning that we have when it comes to money. And then how we were exposed to it in terms of how comfortable we feel about talking about money, and then how we talk about it in our relationships, and how our parents manage money. Did they have a joint bank account? Did they have separate bank accounts? Because that's where we learn our money values and our money blueprint from, as you know.
Exactly.
And often couples will shy away from money because it's just not a nice topic to talk about. It's not a sexy topic. We'll rather talk about other things and avoid the money conversations. But it always comes out to play somewhere down the line when problems crop up.
So thanks, Terence, for your feedback. Still managing to save 10% of my money. It's been difficult, and let me tell you, it has required a huge amount of discipline, because many times I have looked at that savings account and thought like, I only really need 200 Rand right now. And I haven't touched it. And I think that's also one of the most important things that you need to learn when it comes to money is discipline.
Talking about discipline, Kath, what or how are some of the ways that people can, or what are some of the best ways to save right now?
Gosh, so it's quite a big question, and we have some different cultures as well in this country. So stokvels are still pretty big in terms of saving schemes for a lot of the people in this country. I'm a little bit more traditional. I prefer knowing that my money is safe in a bank account and that I'm the only one that has access to it. So for me, depending on whether you want to save and have access to the money or not save and have access to the money would depict the kind of bank account that you have. So I'm going to talk a lot about what I do because I feel that a lot of people will be able to relate. So for me, what I do is I have an Easy Equities account, and attached to my Easy Equities account is a tax-free savings account. And I actually save all of my money in a tax-free just because it works for me. But there are two types of savings accounts. You've got your short-term savings and your long-term savings. Your short-term savings accounts, anything under 5 years, generally the interest rates are a little bit smaller, so anything from like 4 to 6.5%. If you're wanting to tap into the eighth wonder of the world, which is compound interest, you want to save over a longer time. So if you're saving for 10 years or longer, you're more likely to get 10% interest rate. I think Africa Bank actually has like an 11% interest rate account at the moment, and Capitec is 10.5. So there are bank accounts out there that can add value to you from a savings perspective. My best advice to anybody right now is you never have too little to save. Even if you're saving 100 Rand a month, start there, because the benefit of compound interest will eventually get to you. And start saving now, like start today. Don't wait for your next paycheck. Take 50 Rand of the 100 Rand you've got left in your bank account and put it away. What I would suggest as well is actually scheduling your savings. So that's what I do. On the 1st of every month, an automatic debit actually goes off my business account, off my personal account, and goes into my savings account. So I never really see the money in my bank account.
Yeah, and I suppose out of sight, out of mind helps a lot as well.
Yeah. So what are some of the common issues that couples argue about when it comes to money? Is saving one of those arguments?
Saving is one of them, but before we can get to the saving part, it's more around the spending. And generally what you find in what is often crops up in couples is that each partner looks at money differently, and generally we find one person is the spender and one person is the saver. And again, this depends on how they've grown up and what their experience has been like growing up. So for example, when I was growing up, my dad did not know how to manage money, and we lived from month to month basically, and he was the kind of person that would take from Peter to pay Paul. So there was always financial uncertainty and instability in our household, and as a result of that, I grew up with a very real fear of not having money or not being able to be financially stable. And of course, as we do when we grow up, we vow we're never going to be like our parents, right? So I made damn sure that when I started working, the very first thing that I did is I took out a unit trust account, and obviously policies and everything ever since then, because I never wanted to end up being in the same situation as my father and how they lived with that fear. But often when couples come to me, one person is the spender, one person is the saver. And that causes conflict in the relationship, and it's just because we have different money values and money perceptions. One person feels, well, we've got the money, we should be able to live life and enjoy ourselves because we work hard and we earn our money, so why not treat ourselves and go away on the holidays and this and that. And the other person has kind of got the mindset, well, we need to put money away for the rainy day, and the money doesn't grow on trees, and those kind of messages that we've grown up with. And so it's helping couples to really navigate that in terms of where do they find a middle ground, so that their whole life doesn't just become about money. And it's also about spending habits. Do we splurge and shop on luxury items, or do we go and buy things that is reasonable, where we kind of stick to our budget, and then every now and then we spoil ourselves as well. We go away for the odd weekend here and there, or we save up and we go away on a big overseas holiday.
It comes down to the values of the individual person, those two different things.
Absolutely. Values plays a role because our values underpin our thoughts and actions and behavior, and our values are where our priorities are in life. And we have money values just like we have our life values or our personal values. We have personal values, we have relationship values, and then we have values in the workplace. And so, you know, couples very seldom sit down and talk about these things in terms of expectations. And that's the other thing that causes conflict in relationships is unmet expectations. And you'll find that one person kind of takes on the role and the responsibility of always paying the bills and making sure that the bills are paid and managing the money because they feel that they can't rely or depend or trust on their partner because their partner is irresponsible with money in their eyes and their view and their world, of course. And so this causes conflict where the one person feels the other partner is being irresponsible and they can't trust them and they can't rely on them. And the other person feels that this partner is being too controlling when it comes to money and living life. So that often comes up when it comes to... That was
very much my marriage. Yeah. I feel that conversation deeply.
And it can be as simple as, you know, when you're going grocery shopping, well, what brand of tomato sauce are you going to buy? We'll buy this one. No, that's too expensive. Can we rather buy the cheaper brand? I mean, it can be as simple as that. And those kind of things can cause conflict when it comes to couples.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. And so with that, in terms of, you know, with what a lot of couples are dealing with right now, where, you know, partners have lost income or they have lost their jobs, what would be your take on how I could increase my income now, either because of that or because I'm looking for a secondary source of income?
So I've always made sure that I had more than one income stream, just because I had a bit of a mindset like you, where I had so much lack of growing up. The thought of not having money was such a fear for me, and I'm so incredibly grateful now that I have. And that requires a lot of dedication and passion from the individual as well. But there are ways that you can increase your income. So with products like Airbnb and Uber entering into the market, you could be an Uber driver on weekends. You know, you could rent out your cottage or your spare bedroom in your B&B home. So one of the things that I've managed to get right in my own home is I have empowered all of my children to make their own money. So I have, my oldest son is almost 18. He has his own job. He buys his own cell phones, his own game consoles, and all his own clothes. You know, that saves me quite a bit of cash every month. My 10-year-old has a dog walking business, and my middle son, who's 14, has a math tutoring business. If they want anything electronic, anything clothing-wise, anything that isn't within my budget, they buy and pay for it themselves. So that freed me up quite a bit of income. It wasn't a second income, but I encouraged them to make their own income. So that was one way that I managed to cut back on costs. Like I mentioned earlier, I dabble a bit with easy equities, and the reason I love easy equities so much is because there's a full demo site that you can actually go and play on a demo site with live stocks and shares and ETFs and ETNs. For those of you who don't know what that is, ETFs, ETNs, exchange traded funds, exchange traded notes. If you have some questions, I can go into more detail for you. And there are some investments that are doing really well for me at the moment. So the fourth industrial revolution baskets, all the cannabis and marijuana products, and then companies like Nestle and those guys who have a huge demand for their products at the moment are doing well. So I create passive income streams for myself there. You could create passive income streams from being an affiliate online. There's websites out there called weworkremotely.com where you can work for 5 hours a day earning $100 an hour, you know, doing data capturing and client service and all sorts of things. And when you apply your mind to actually deciding that you're not going to be a 9-to-5er, you will find ways to make a second income stream.
I think right now it's looking at what are the opportunities, because with being in COVID and everybody working remotely, it's actually also given us access to the rest of the world in terms of being able to work remote as well.
Well, that's what was my next question. What are some of the things that couples can take into consideration now when it comes to money from an emotional perspective?
So the most important thing is to sit down and talk about money, and not see it as this big monster or elephant in the room that we sweep under the carpet and avoid it, because that just makes the situation worse. And right now is where couples need to turn towards each other instead of away from each other, and actually be more supportive, because due to COVID, couples are experiencing more stress and anxiety than, well, in fact, all individuals are experiencing more stress and anxiety than usual, and money being one of them. So the first thing is to sit down and talk about money and say, right, these are our household expenses. This is my income. This is your income. And how do we make sure that our expenses right now are being covered? And then what's left? And what do we choose to do with the money? And do we prefer to have a joint bank account where we pay all our money into, and that pays for all the household expenses, and then whatever's left is our own money, and we can do whatever we want with it? So it's putting down those boundaries, or those ground rules, the deal breakers, which is another conversation couples don't like to have, in terms of what are my expectations and our expectations when it comes to money and in our relationship, and do we share everything 50-50, so that old saying of what's yours is mine and mine is yours, or is it this is ours but this is mine, and what I do with my money is my business, but if I choose to share it with you, that's my choice. So it also creates a space of transparency and trust, and knowing that my partner's not going to do something that's going to put me in jeopardy. Like some cases where I've heard, and maybe Virash can talk to this as well, being in the legal industry, is where, you know, some partners don't know what their partner has got up to, only to find out later that they're in mountains of debt, because they haven't been involved in those discussions in terms of the large purchasing decisions. And kind of what is that barrier? Is it anything below this amount? You know what, you don't have to check in with me, you can go and spend your money, but everything over that amount, we need to have a conversation about it. To build the trust in the relationship, to build the transparency in the relationship, and most importantly, the communication in the relationship. Because at the end of the day, couples, you're a partnership. You're a team, and to make sure that you're on the same side and the same team, it's about having these conversations, and it doesn't have to be ugly, horrible, nasty conversations.
Yeah, and they really are hard ones to have, especially when the values are so different. And like I said earlier, in my marriage, it was so difficult, but even having those open communications was difficult, because immediately there was that wall up, and it was like, this is not a discussionable topic. It was really difficult.
And that's where it's important to know that if you've tried to have these conversations and you aren't able to, then to go and seek help and get someone to help you to have the conversations, because they're important conversations to have. It's going to be a conversation that's going to live with you for the rest of your life as long as you're together. So you might as well learn how to have those kind of conversations.
So as a single person, and I'm now embarking on a new relationship, what are some of the red flags that I should be looking for when it comes to money?
So I think, you know, while we're still in the honeymoon romantic phase, we don't pay attention to those little red flags, the little signs. So for example, how the person spends money. So for example, if you're going out on a dinner date, is he expecting you to pay? Are you expecting him to pay? Or are you kind of going Dutch? If you're going to their house, take note of how they live their life, their lifestyle. Does it look like they're living above their means, or does it look like they've got quite a good sort of handle and hold on their money? Do they talk openly about money? Do they share things with you? When it comes to the purchases that they've made or the things that they're thinking of buying. You know, what is their attitude towards money, and how does that align with where you're at in your money values and money system, and the kind of relationship that you want to be in when it comes to talking about money.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm going to look for those flags.
But also even broach the subject and see how that person responds and reacts when money is brought up. Do they always kind of like shy away from it and try and avoid the money conversations? Or do they openly talk about it? Do they feel comfortable about it? Because those will also give you some clues.
How would you recognize if somebody was living above their means?
So it would be kind of, you have an idea of what their job is and what they do. So if they're in a managerial position, you would also look at the area that they live in, the type of house that they live in, the type of furniture that they have, the places that they go to, those kind of things. And it would also be, I suppose you could look at the number of credit cards that they've got in their wallet, because that could also be a sign that maybe they're living from credit card to credit card. Kind of thing. And do they talk about savings as well? Do they talk about things like life insurance and policies and stuff like that? Because that'll also tell you where their mindset is at.
Did somebody raise their hand?
No, it was, I think it was just a question, yeah. It was Terence's comment. Does anybody have any questions at the moment of what we've just touched on that they want to maybe ask?
Okay, looks like we can carry on.
So with spending habits and that, quite a few people, and I think you know the stats. I can't remember, you shared it with me once in terms of South Africa and our debt levels. But if couples or if an individual is in debt now, what would you say to them in terms of how do they manage debt or how do they deal with getting out of debt?
So the first thing is be honest with yourself and take a good hard look at where you're at. I think a lot of the time we want to bury our head in the sand. So the first thing we do is we avoid those calls. When you haven't paid your car for 5 months and Westbank is phoning you, answer the phone, have a conversation with them, make a payment plan. So if you're in debt and you owe somebody money and they've blacklisted you, if you're paying a little bit every month, they're not going to be able to take you to court. They're not going to be able to get a judgment against you. They're not going to come and detach your goods. So one, don't ignore the problem. Face the problems head on. So the thing that I would do first is I would go and pull a credit report. Make sure you're very clear of exactly who has blacklisted you, where you've been listed as a slow payment, and start to work on those things first, because those are the things that are going to affect you for the longer time. Because you've now been blacklisted, it's affecting your credit score, you're less likely to get credits going forward. So work on those elements first. Look at your budget and see where you can cut back. If I could cut back 10,000 Rand now when COVID hits, I promise you everybody can save a couple of thousand Rand a month. And I actually developed a step program for myself. There's 5 very basic steps that you can do to cut back. And I'm happy to share that with everybody just now. Look at another way that you can get income streams. So even though I'm surviving and I'm making money, I haven't stopped looking for more income streams. I'm on weworkremotely.com every day applying for remote jobs. So generally a lot of the jobs are in the States. So you would work from 4 in the afternoon till 11 o'clock at night. Still gives you a full day to work on your own stuff. So how can you increase your revenue? And what I would say now is save. Pay yourself first. Because even though you need to prioritize paying off your debt, you also need to prioritize not being in this situation next time you hit a speed wobble. Give yourself a bit of a runway. You need 3 to 6 months money in the bank so that you can cover your expenses. So if you're in a lot of debt, 600,000 and up, I would suggest maybe having a look at a debt counselor as long as you have a set income, because that's going to help you survive. But if you do that, keep in mind that you won't be able to buy anything or apply for anything until all of those debts are paid off. So yeah, work out where you're at, figure out how much money you have and how much money you can free up for your debt. Don't avoid any of those calls, and make sure you're paying off the biggest amounts or the ones with the most interest or the ones that are impacting you negatively the most first.
Yeah, I think those are some good tips. So start with the small little ones and get those done first. And I see Lauren's giving you, is that a high five or have you got your hand up, Lauren?
I've got a question actually.
Yes.
So I'm an entrepreneur, and my income isn't always 100% stable. My company is 2 years old now, so it's hitting a bit of an even keel. But then now with COVID coming along, there's a little bit of insecurity and that kind of thing. So for me, when I quit my full-time job, I pretty much got rid of all my policies. And a big one is my medical aid. And I'm sitting here with my partner, so I'm sort of hanging our dirty laundry up. But for me, it's a little bit less important to have it. I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm quite comfortable with risk and that kind of thing, and I'm healthy and I look after my health and that kind of thing. But my partner, she, on the other hand, she knows the importance of that, and I'm not denying that it is important. Yeah. And although I could probably afford it and I have my savings and all of that, it's still something that's tricky for me, I don't want to commit to something that I might not be able to pay for. How would you handle something like that?
So I went from a Discovery medical aid to One Plan. So One Plan is medical insurance. It's not a medical aid. And I love it. So I get a card, and every time I want to do something, I just go onto the app. I say I'm going to the dentist. They load money on the card. I load up the claim. It doesn't cover me 100%, but for me and 3 of my kids to be on the top plan with One Plan and have full hospital cover up to 2 million rand, it cost me less than 5,000 rand a month. And then what I did was I took an additional gap cover. But there's actually some really good products in the marketplace that Momentum launched that I became aware of recently as well. So as an entrepreneur, if you have 1 or 2 staff, Momentum actually has a medical saving product for 350 rand a month that you can leverage off. So my suggestion is you need to be covered. We live in Africa. This is the dark continent, and we are exposed to a lot of stuff in this country, and our government system isn't going to support you. So I would suggest that you get something on a smaller scale that's going to cost you less than 1,000 rand. As a single individual, if it's just you with One Plan, it would cost you 1,000 rand a month to have the full cover that I have for me and my 3 kids.
Okay.
Yeah, so look at different alternatives. So One Plan and Momentum for me were the ones that had the products with the best value.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Pleasure.
And Robin is, she's giving you a high five.
Thank you for reminding her that she lives in Africa.
No, I think it's a big realization to have when, I don't know when the last time you guys went to hospital was, but the last time I was at a government hospital it was a really long time. It was about 15 years ago. My brother got really, really sick, and the guy in the bed next to him was dead. And he was there for 2 days. And it was just such a realization for me. I was like, never again will I allow anybody in my family to be in that situation.
Yeah, no, sure. That's very real.
It's very real.
And I think, Lauren, maybe something else just for the 2 of you to consider or think about from a relationship point of view is we all have different levels of appetite when it comes to risk. Mm-hmm. And you sound like you have an appetite for risk because these things are not that important to you. You know they are, but right now you don't feel it is. Where maybe your partner does feel it's important and she has less of an appetite for risk. And I'm assuming just obviously based on what you've said, but it could also be around, having that conversation in terms of risk and managing risk and fear that comes with that. And what if something happens?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you.
Just my last question for you today, Paula, is what are some of the things that couples should take into account when they're considering when it's coming to money, just like you've explained to Lauren? What are some of the other things that we need to consider?
So I think a big thing that couples often forget is the different currencies when it comes to our relationships. Money is only one currency, but often when we think about, or when couples use the phrase or the sentence, how am I contributing to my relationship? They're associating it with money. And money is only one of the ways that we contribute to our relationship. There are many other ways that we contribute. So first of all, when it comes to money, look at each other's income, and if you're not earning, and then what is your expectation? Are you expecting each other to contribute 50-50 financially, or are you looking to contribute relative to income? So 60-40 or 70-30. And then how are you going to manage that? Are you putting it into a joint bank account, or are you saying, well, you pay for these things and I'll pay for these things? So that's the money side of it. In terms of other ways that we contribute to a relationship, we contribute in terms of how we show up and how we co-create our relationships every day. It's those little things that we do that says to our partner, I care about you, I love you, I respect you, I value you, I appreciate you, and I'm thinking about you. So for example, when it comes to the household chores, who's taking care of what? Because that's contributing to the household and the relationship. When it comes to entertainment, who is contributing what? Generally you find in couples and relationships, one person is the social person and one person is the not so social person. So for example, in our household, if I don't manage our social calendar and diary, we would never go anywhere. We wouldn't leave our house because my hubby he's a homebody, okay? So that's the way I contribute to the relationship. He contributes by pottering around the house and taking care of the DIY and doing what I call the boys' jobs in the household, okay? And I'm saying that respectfully. So that's his way of contributing to our household. It's also about contributing in terms of intimacy. And when I talk intimacy and sex are two different things, often confused as one and the same thing, but they're not. Intimacy is how do we speak to each other? How affectionate are we towards each other? How do we speak about each other and about our relationship to others when we're not in each other's company? And how do we manage expectations? Also, how are we living our relationship values and the boundaries we've drawn around our relationship? How do we make time for each other, and particularly quality time? And this is often where relationship counselors and coaches and they talk about date nights. I prefer to call it date time. It's about being intentional about making time to spend time with each other, because that's what builds your connection and your bond and grows you as a couple and grows your relationship. And then lastly, it's about how do you resolve conflict? Because if you don't resolve conflict over time, it can become destructive in terms of the naming, shaming, blaming, criticizing, and then that's when you end up talking to Virash and the likes of going down that rocky road to divorce. So it's about looking at that bigger picture in terms of what are the other currencies in my relationship and how am I contributing where those currencies are concerned, and it's not just money.
Okay. And what should every couple be doing now in this crisis?
I think, first of all, this crisis has taught us about what's valuable versus what's important. So important is things like freedom of movement, independence, family, relationships, friendships, versus what's valuable. We've learned about so many things that we can do without. The material things, those kind of things, the places I need to be seen at, and those kind of things. And really sitting down and reflecting in terms of life and where are we at now and where do we want to go and how do we have to adjust our sails, so to speak, to what's important to us now. Because life has shifted and we haven't necessarily caught up with the new way and how we're going to be living going forward.
And just from a financial perspective, to answer the same question is how do you deal with this crisis now or the next crisis? Plan for the worst and hope for the best. So my best advice now is save at least 10% of everything that you're earning, if not 30%. If you have 30%, save it. If I think about how much money I've saved on petrol, wine, eating out, everybody can afford to save right now, okay? Because we've all cut back on those expenses. My petrol bill alone was 1,000 Rand that I saved on because I go out once a week, So everybody can save. So plan for the worst, hope for the best, and have a bit of a strategy in place of how you're going to start increasing your income. So for people like Lauren, who are like us, who are entrepreneurs, what can you do now to make sure that you're having those income streams? So don't stop advertising. Don't stop advertising your business. Don't stop networking. Don't stop going to webinars and meeting other people. Pretend that life is carrying on as normal and just make this your new norm. And all the money that you're saving and the things that you're not doing, like eating out, reallocate it to your medical aid or into your savings account.
Yeah, some good tips there. I think I need to go and review some of my savings and what I should be doing with those things and reinvesting it back into either debt or life or policies or something like that. So yeah, thanks. Thanks, Kath. So yeah, I want to open the floor up to everybody, and just sort of general comments or questions if you have, either for Kath or myself, or you can post them in the chat box in terms of some of the things that maybe you've been facing or that have challenged you, or things that you're going to be walking away from today in terms of thinking about that you maybe had not thought about before.
Or any tools that you might need, like if you don't know how to budget properly, and you need some advice, any questions like that.
Well, I'm sorry to ask something. Maybe it might not be related to what you've said. I was fascinated by the easy equities discussion,
Yeah.
I think that when I do deal with couples, sometimes you have the one who's not financially, I wouldn't say secure, but independent, where they want to have some sort of independence and control over what little they have. How would you, is dabbling in easy equities, and what websites should they go to? What is the safe and secure way so they don't get swindled in some way?
So going for reputable platforms like Easy Equities. So Easy Equities is safe, it's secure. So all these websites will have some kind of security and privacy policy on them. So spending some time making sure that you're not signing up for some kind of get-rich-quick scheme. So generally the rule is, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I get contacted on social media all the time. Hi, I'd love to tell you about my home-based business, or I'd love to talk to you about this pyramid scheme. No thanks, like I'm not interested. I'm not interested in some kind of get-rich-quick scheme. I've also dabbled in things like cryptocurrency. You know, get your feet wet, try it out on a really small scale. The best way to learn is to make mistakes. So don't go and invest R1 million into something that you haven't tested with R1,000. So look for platforms that are safe, that are secure, that are reputable. The beautiful thing about Easy Equities is you can actually go and trade in real life without actually putting any money in, because the demo site is linked to the real stock exchange. So you can go and practice for 3 months before you even spend a cent.
Or then finding a financial advisor as well, that
can advise you.
That can advise you, depending on what it is, if it's just savings versus policies, those kind of things.
And also have a look at what's happening in the marketplace. So as an example, cannabis products and marijuana products they're very topical at the moment, and it's not a local conversation, it's a global conversation. And I heard on the news the other day that KZN actually wants to start growing hemp products to increase the GDP in KZN. So when you start hearing these conversations, go and have a look and see what investments are available in that space. I can tell you that all of my cannabis and marijuana investments are doing exceptionally well at the moment because there's such an appetite for it. So things like Coca-Cola, as an example, you'll probably see over the next 20 years that their stocks will go down as people prove how bad sugar is for you. So pick something that you can see is on an upward curve and test the waters first. Dip your feet in and see how it feels.
Thank you.
Awesome. Has anyone else got any other questions or just comments, food for thought, that you're taking away with you today?
Terence, I'd love to hear your point of view.
Always do your own due diligence. Everyone has a comment, everyone has an opinion, everyone has a thought. Any Tom, Dick, and Harry can make a blog and a podcast. So get opinions, get points of view, and then go and do your own due diligence. You know, and they might look nice, they might appear nice, they might, for whatever reasons, be relatable, but always go and do your own research. So like you're saying, in Easy Equities, see who owns them, see if you like what they do. Satrix, for instance, I had a client in the week. He was devastated to hear that Sanlam owns Satrix. And that's because when his dad died, they never got paid out a life policy, and I'm not going to get into the whole story, but so they hate Sanlam. So now he wants to cash out all his Satrix investments. I'm like, wait, that's an emotional decision. Yeah. Just one thing, Kathryn, you mentioned, and I don't know if it was in in that regard. But don't use a tax-free savings account as an emergency fund. The tax-free savings account is a long-term investment.
Long-term, yeah.
Yeah. And there's lots of reasons for it.
Long-term, yeah.
So, platform like Easy Equities or anything similar to that is always good. And then understand the difference between simple interest and compound interest. Because a lot of these companies make these big, bold claims. Like you say, if it sounds too good to be true, it might be. With African Bank at over 12 and last year ABS had over 13%, that's simple interest. It's not compound. And there's a massive difference. So yeah, do that. And then my last one, just from a financial planner's hat, for Lauren and partner, look at medical insurance, look at medical aid, understand the differences, and also know that later on in life, if you want to join a medical aid and you're over the age of 35, there's going to be massive penalty fees. So yeah. And then I suppose, Paula, like you said, get financial advice. A big one before you take on a financial advisor, find out who they work for, read their mandate, and ask them how they're paid. Because if they're paid by a product provider, not all of them, but most of them, are they working in your best interests or not? So try and find one where you actually pay them a fee to get independent advice.
Some good tips there, Terence. Thanks.
My pleasure.
Sorry, I had to let my dog out.
Any other questions?
I'm not trying to hijack, but if anyone's got financial planning questions, I can answer as well in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah. One other thing that also comes up with couples when it comes to money that we didn't really touch on is around supporting family members. So whether it's elderly parents or brothers, that's another topic that often comes up when I work with couples. One partner has an issue because the other partner is supporting their family when they feel that they should be supporting their immediate family. In other words, their household and their children, and not supporting their mother or father or brother or auntie, uncle, whoever it might be. And that's often a thing that comes up. And it's a discussion under unmet expectations, because there's an expectation there that the money should be coming into our own household and looking after our own household first. But all the money's going out to your family and you supporting your family, and our family is suffering. That's the sort of perception that comes in. And so that's another touchy subject that couples don't often have or talk about, and or lay ground rules down in terms of how we're going to manage this situation, and kind of what's the breaking point. Over this amount, under that amount, or for how long or how many years are we going to be supporting? And so to define that criteria in those situations. Stephen, I see you've put your camera on. Did you have a question or something that you wanted to ask? No, all good.
It's all fine, thanks. I just want to make a suggestion or a comment related to what Kathryn was saying and you were saying. When you're addressing with your partner regarding the financial situation or where to or what to, it's not a one-off conversation.
No.
I think it has to be, I think you have to just revisit it as and when required. And if it's every day, then it's every day initially. And if it's once a week, whatever. So that's just my little contribution there.
Absolutely. It's not every couple and every relationship is different, and it's actually an ongoing conversation, because as you move through the different life stages, your needs are going to change. So for example, if a young married couple's needs and money needs are going to be very different to when they've now started having children, to when they are now empty nesters and the children have moved out of home, to when they're retiring. So it's an ongoing conversation, and it should be part of your, I don't want to call it your annual review, but those conversations where couples should sit down and check in with each other in terms of, how are we doing as a couple and as a relationship? Are we still on the same page with each other? Do we still have the same needs? Is our lifestyle and our life stage still the same? And what does that mean from a money perspective, as well as all those other areas that I spoke about? So yeah, some good points there. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, or needs, tools, tips? I will be sending out a recording of this to everybody as well. And Kathryn, I think you have a simple budget template that you're going to send out to everybody. And so we'll send that out that everybody can, if just out of interest, they can use it as a framework. And thanks, Terence. Don't buy policies you think you should because you think you should. Yeah. But yeah, money is not the root to all evil, as we have potentially been conditioned from growing up, depending on the messaging. Money is a vehicle to the lifestyle that you want to live. And this is where you and your partner should be sitting down and going, what is the lifestyle that we want to live? And what does that mean from a money point of view?
So Terence, Lauren asked a question, is property still a good investment?
Lauren, it depends what you're looking at there. Is it property to buy and rent, property to live in, property to fix up and flip? Property has a place in every single investment. So yes, I do believe so. But investments in my mind is 5 to 7 years and longer. Property is probably 10 years and longer, but it depends again on intention. That's always a massive one. So I'm happy to chat to you further about it. But yeah,
Awesome,
the property should be part of the portfolio.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions? Did I miss it? Was your partner's name Robin?
Robin, yeah.
Hi, Robin.
Hello. I don't have anything, but thank you. Thank you for the session.
You're welcome. I hope that's helped.
I hope so too.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for spending your Saturday afternoon with us. We hope it has been of value to you, and that's given you some food for thought or some nuggets to walk away with, and we'll be sharing some tools as well, sending it out to everybody. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you either on our next webinar, which is coming up. We've got a stress webinar coming up next week. I'll send some details with that. Terence, I think you and I have a webinar coming up at some point as well. I'll just have to check the date on that.
We must plan that.
Where it is, but this is more around the financial planning side of things. And then, yeah, if there's any other questions, please feel free to send them by email, and we'll happily help or answer or get in touch where we can.
Yeah, so just a quick note from my side is we run free saving and investment workshops every week. They are targeted at teenagers, but adults are most definitely welcome. And we actually run you through what are your saving options, what are your investment options, what are the advantages and disadvantages of each. And all of the adults that have actually attended our teen programs have signed on for our 6-week boot camps. So they happen every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. If you go to my Facebook page, MoneySavvy Kids, or my LinkedIn page, MoneySavvy Kids, you'll get some information about the free workshops we're running there. Terence, please join in. I'd love your feedback.
Will do.
Cool. Thank you everybody so much, and enjoy the rest of the weekend.